Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 3, Episode 6 of Apple TV's Ted Lasso, entitled Sunflowers. So this title refers to a sunflower painting that Ted sees at this Van Gogh exhibit. Ted thinks he's high on what I believe to be this shroom tea, and the shroom tea, the Van Gogh exhibit, and the American restaurant that he goes to eventually help him come up with a new strategy for how the team will play going forward. As far as the episode goes, unfortunately, this episode is another disappointment for me. Sorry to say it. Well, no, I'm not. It was. I'm sorry that was the case. I'm not sorry that I said it. It's a particularly long episode, I think, for this show, and you feel it. And that's never. You don't ever want to feel it, where you're just like, man, this feels long. There's not a lot of laughs here. I'm not saying there isn't any at all. I'm just saying there's not a lot. It drags at the beginning, setting up a premise that it doesn't actually ever pay off, which is the idea that everyone is about to have a fun night out in Amsterdam. Now, mind you, I don't care if they don't have a fun night out in Amsterdam. I didn't go, oh, I'm disappointed in this episode because they didn't have a night out in Amsterdam. I don't care about that, but I care if you spend like 30 minutes setting up the idea that they're going to have a night out in Amsterdam and they don't. Like maybe spend 10 to 15 minutes on that and then spend the other 45 telling the story that you want to tell. It just felt weird because I'm thinking like, okay, I'm going to see Beard, and I'm excited to think like I'm going to see Ted out in Amsterdam. The team as a group out in Amsterdam. Like I'm ready for all that shit, and it never got there. And I'm fine with it not getting there. I don't mind my expectations being subverted. I just mind spending that much of the episode's runtime on building that up for it to never happen. And then also, I feel like the mediocre moments in this episode outnumber the good ones. You never want to have that either. There's still a couple of good scenes, but by and large, I feel like this episode was only like marginally entertaining, and it didn't do enough to justify such a hearty runtime. So let's get to talking about the episode. So the episode opens up with Richmond having lost another game. This time it's an exhibition game, or a freebie as Roy calls it, or Coach Beard. I can't remember which person corrected Ted in this moment, but they lose at 5-0. The team looks super dejected. They're devastated. I think the best example of this is Jan Ma saying in an interview that it's a good thing their spirits were already broken prior to the match. That's both sad and funny. But the match took place in Amsterdam, so the entire club collectively decides they're going to have a night out in Amsterdam. And so I'm going to talk about this episode by the groupings that we see preparing for this night out in Amsterdam. The groupings being Ted and Coach Beard, Rebecca, the team, the players, Higgins and Will, Roy and Jamie, and Colin and Trent. So, of course, going to start with Ted and Coach Beard. Ted opens the episode by giving the team no curfew. Like, you know, after this loss, he says something like, you guys don't have to be back here until the bus leaves at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And they're super excited about that. He later tells Beard that he feels like he's kind of like stuck in a slump, can't really think creatively, wants to try something new to kind of like pull himself out of this. And Beard immediately jumps on this statement and starts preparing this shroom tea, which again, based on the way he described it and what I know about shrooms as someone who may or may not have done it, I know that putting it in tea is a common thing that people do. Coach Beard downs his fucking tea and eventually leaves altogether. Ted doesn't initially, but he changes his mind, drinks most of it, and then leaves and goes to this museum. So seemingly inspired by the shroom tea and the Van Gogh exhibit, Ted then goes to an American restaurant he mentioned earlier, Yankee Doodle something or other. He mentioned it to Coach Beard. It's a very cowboy / Texas themed restaurant with massive portions and a lot of howdies and hat tipping and by people who don't know shit about America. The only worst thing, I feel like this is gonna piss somebody off, but I don't give a fuck. The only worst thing than how little that staff knew about America is how little America knows about everything else. Like, we don't give a fuck about it. Americans in general don't give a fuck about anything outside of their immediate space, let alone anything that happens in another country. Like, we are truly fucking clueless about what is happening in this world. Side tangent. Willful and purposeful ignorance just irritates me. Like, Americans could know more about other countries. They just don't give a fuck because we're American, we're the best, and who gives a fuck about anywhere else? Idiocy. But yes, that's the only thing worse than how little this staff knows about America. So Ted watches an old Bulls game from the Jordan era, and after the Bulls' triangle offense is discussed, Ted kind of like hallucinates an explanation of the triangle offense, and this helps break him out of his slump. He now has a new idea for the team that Beard endorses when Ted shares it with him. So it seems like we'll probably be seeing the team try out total football next week. He also hallucinates seeing Nate in the restaurant, which is interesting because that lets us know that Ted is more upset about the Nate situation than he lets on outwardly. You know, like the handful of times Nate's been discussed, Ted's always been kind of just like, like not even dismissive, just like it's not even important enough to him to really get into. But your subconscious lets us know it's really important to you, and the fact that he sees Nate there lets us know how strong of an influence suggestion can have on the mind, since we find out that the tea was a dud. And I just think that's a pretty interesting bit of knowledge that we get on Ted, that, you know, all these hallucinations were not brought on by the tea, but just by the fact that he thought they were being brought on by the tea. I love the idea of suggestion being able to have an influence on the mind. I just think that's cool. Moving on to Rebecca. She's just walking around the town, in the bike lane, and she gets knocked into the water. Now, before we even continue, this ties back again to the psychic. So she said something about Rebecca being upside down and soaking wet. Well, Rebecca goes headfirst to the water here and is, of course, soaking wet. So now we've had the green matchbook, which is tied to Sam, the Shite Knighting armor line, which is tied to the X from the coffee shop, and now the upside down and soaking wet thing being tied to this Dutch guy. And I think the only thing we're left with is something about, I think, thunder and lightning or something like that, which I wonder if that's going to be a callback to the Roy line of you deserve someone who makes you feel like you've been struck by lightning. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm not sure where this Rebecca plot is going. But so far, it's become a lot less interesting than I think it could have been. Not how it should have been, because like I tell you guys, I don't do this shit, so I'm not going to tell you the right way to do it. I'm just going to tell you how I feel about the way you did do it, and if I feel like maybe if it had been done differently, if it had worked for me a little bit better. And this could have been a mystery, and these things could have been clues that would lead her to understand who she's supposed to be with, but instead, the clues are just loosely tied to people who she's had some sort of romantic situation with. So now they feel more like proof for Rebecca that psychics are real, and that doesn't interest me at all. And maybe Rebecca will use these clues and these relationships to learn something about herself that changes her or her perspective on romance, which, I mean, again, like I said, I reserve the right to say, like, yo, I was wrong when I kind of shit on, I'm not going to say I shit on, but like, you know, when I criticized Rebecca's storyline after episode 6, I was wrong. I like what they ended up doing. I reserve the right to do that. But I'd be pretty disappointed to spend this time on these clues to get nothing more than, hey, that's one of the clues out of it, and have to wait till the end of the show to see what the actual purpose of it is. Like, I'd kind of like to see the purpose, but it'd be better to see the purpose, but not see the ending. So, like, I don't like the idea of not seeing the purpose and only seeing the ending, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like it's not. I feel like it's no longer clues to who she's supposed to end up with. Now it just feels kind of random, and like again, it's gonna confirm for her that she's gonna now question her belief in psychics. But raise your hand if you give a fuck whether or not Rebecca believes in psychics. No hands went up, I assure you. So like, like I don't know. I don't know where this is going, and again, it could go somewhere that I like. But as of right now, I'm no longer really a fan of it because I don't feel like these are clues to an end goal. I feel like these are just random things that are just tied to people that she used to be with, and that maybe like the fourth one will matter, or I don't know. But having said that, there was a niceness to the scenes with the Dutch guy on the boat. Like the boat's very it's very warm. It's very warmly lit. Lots of browns, yellows, to kind of help convey this sense of calm and comfort that she could feel safe here. And the two have some nice moments together. Like I like when they dump their drinks on her dry clothes so they can hang out a little bit longer. I like how he kept saying that one word and she just kept going along with it. And when she finally asked him what he meant, he was basically just like, yeah, it just means it's a good vibe. Like, he doesn't say that. But like that's the message that he was conveying. But what I didn't like, and it's starting to happen a lot this season, dude was just too perfect, and it made the scenes feel like something out of a far-fetched romantic comedy. And I can't take those sorts of movies seriously because they paint a completely ludicrous picture of what human relationships and life are like, and then you get people who are yearning for someone else in their life, and they go to these fucking movies that paint this ridiculous picture, and they go out and engage in the real world, and they're like, hey, why didn't this guy lay his jacket down over this puddle, over this mud puddle for me? And it's like, well, that doesn't really happen in real life. That only happens in movies that have no interest in showcasing real life. They're only there to make you spend a bunch of money, to make you think something like, oh, it would be so nice if that romantic thing happened to me. That shit's not real. I don't take it seriously. It's not plausible. So when you do it in this show, it felt very, because kind of like it felt corny. It was just, I don't know, man. Like, it made the show feel less real, and it made it feel more contrived. Like they're going for the things that I feel like they did naturally in seasons 1 and 2. So watching this guy be absolutely flawless just really took me out of the moment. Like, it's one thing if he's like cool. I was like, oh, this guy's cool, and they build a rapport. But this guy was way beyond too much. Like, perfect in every single way that a man can be. Like, every single thing he did was meant to convey a level of perfection that is just completely over the top. And like that, wanting to tell this story of Rebecca's romantic life. You're like, oh, you want to bring these people into her life to help her gain some perspective on romance and her romantic life and all these kind of things. Like, okay, you got this younger guy and he's a player on the team, and you have the past with Rupert, and you got all these different things, right? But like, I feel like you don't have to go that hard for me to be looking at a relationship that Rebecca could be in and go, oh, I like this. This is good for her. Like, he doesn't have to be like the most perfect fucking guy on the planet for me to be like, oh, this is nice for Rebecca. So it just felt like they went way too hard on making this guy perfect. Like, excuse me, he threw his own phone in the water to, I don't know what, convey a pointless point to someone he doesn't know yet. What was that? He shows a wild level of kindness and consideration in general, but like, you know, even down to like leaving the boat because he's like, I figured you wouldn't want to shower with somebody in here who might have put a peephole in or something like that. Like, that's overly considerate. Like, you didn't have to leave your house. You could have just not used the peephole. You could have just not been right there when she come out. Like, you have to leave altogether. Now, that's a very nice thing to do. But like, and by that point, I'm still not like, this guy's doing too much. I am just like, okay, well, he's nice. But then it's like, okay, he's a super manly man. But then he's also making dinner, and he makes breakfast. He's offering like these flawless foot massages that put you to sleep. Gently wrapping your ankle and then kissing it like you're a child. Singing, dancing, disparaging his ex. I'm like, yo, fuck this guy, man. Like, there's no real human that's like this. Like, people like that only exist in television and movies. And I just can't stand unrealistic portrayals of people. Nobody's perfect in every fucking way like this guy. And okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure if he was a real person, he would have some flaws. But you get the point. It's a bit too on the nose. They beat me over the head like Negan did Glenn with the idea that this guy is great for Rebecca. I fucking get it. But they went so hard with hammering home that point that it became overly corny and really just started to like make me roll my eyes. I'm just like, all right, fuck. What else is this guy gonna do? Like, she gonna say I'm cold, and then he's gonna like rope the fucking sun or something? Like, I don't know, too much. Moving on to the team, after having being given no curfew, the team wants to decide how they're gonna spend the night. Jan Maas wants to go to a private party that's 2 hours away. Van Damme wants to go to a sex show. And then Sam, of course, wants to stay in and watch a movie. And Danny wants to see a single tulip. Even that, even Danny's not as good this season. I'm like, harping on the tulip. Like, the tulip thing wasn't funny to begin with. Like, oh, I want to see a tulip. Like, okay. But then, like, they kept coming back to that. Like, it was funny and it wasn't. Like, and there's been a lot of moments where, like, Danny's been kind of like rapid fire jokes this season, but like they're hitting like 2 out of 10 times. Like, he's not as he's when he's good, but when he's not, he's not. But this was easily and far and away the worst aspect of this episode, which says a lot given how I just kind of shitted on Rebecca's little boy tour here. But now, before people who are incapable of hearing criticism of their favorite show get started, I understand that this was meant to be a bonding moment for the team and a happy moment for the team. They were down in the dumps after losing a bunch of games. I get it. But very little that led up to their final decision was entertaining. Very few laughs. Weird moments, like every time Isaac spoke, it felt weird. And it just felt like we were delaying something entertaining to spend more time watching them deliberate. And the deliberations were not entertaining. So I'm like, can we get past the fucking deliberations and get to them doing something that's fun to watch? And then they end up fucking doing a fucking pillow fight. Like, and I just can't think of a more disappointing result. Like, I don't even think adults would find that fun, to be honest, no matter how cute this show wants it to be. But I don't see how, when party or sex is on the table, that pillow fight would win out. And just the idea that many adult men will be allowed to pillow fight unbothered in the middle of the night in a goddamn hotel lobby, it just really, really took me out of the episode. I'm like, calm the fuck on. Like, now this show is like, that time the show went from straddling the line between heartwarming and corny to fully diving headfirst into fucking corny. Like, the fucking pillow fight was that was the end of the episode. I'm like, come on, dog. Like, this is like, now it's like again, like they're trying for something they did naturally. They're trying to be cute. They're trying to be heartwarming. They're trying to make you go, oh, and when you work that hard for it, it stops landing. And like what's the cutest thing we could do? We could have them do a pillow fight. What, like, in the middle of fucking Amsterdam, in the middle of fucking night, in the middle of a fucking hotel lobby? No, that doesn't work. And like I don't know. It's like I said, I felt like they built up a premise. Everyone's gonna have a night out in Amsterdam. And again, I don't mind if that doesn't happen, which it didn't. But don't spend 30 fucking minutes on deliberations to end up in a fucking pillow fight. Like, and again, like, to me, that's not even a plausible ending. But it's like, it seems like they were like, fuck plausibility. We want something cute that's going to make people go, aw. And I'm just like, no. Stick with plausibility first, then worry about the awe. Moving on to Roy and Jamie, and has been the case all season. The Roy-Jamie stuff, despite one small little hiccup, continues to be the best stuff on the show this season. Roy doesn't allow Jamie to hang with the team because Jamie's supposed to be working at being better than Zava. So they get off the bus and immediately start running. After Roy says something about windmills not being real, which was a really weird thing to say, Jamie decides they're gonna ride bikes and they're gonna find a windmill. And again, why? Like, I can't imagine proving that windmills are real being important to any living human being on the planet. Like, I don't understand why that was something. I don't understand why that was the goal, or where the idea, like if you're the writers and you're like, we want to have more Roy and Jamie interactions that are heartfelt or heartwarming or whatever. How can we set one up now? And somebody in the thing was like, let's have them look for windmills in Amsterdam. What the fuck? Anyway, because of this, we learned that Roy doesn't know how to ride a bike. And me neither, Roy, me neither. We're then, I don't know, depending on your perspective, treated to or subjected to a montage of Jamie teaching Roy how to ride a bike. Now, the raindrops keep falling on my head. That shit, it gave me real 80s, 90s sitcom vibes. And like, that was probably intentional, but it didn't work for me. I would have much preferred that the montage have no music at all and just like Roy riding terribly, falling down and swearing a bunch. Like, and maybe like quick cuts. Fall, fuck, you know, a different fall, whatever. To me, that would have been funny. Like, the raindrops keep falling on my head. Like that felt like I said, it felt like an 80s sitcom montage or something. It was super corny. I don't know, man. It was just a little bit too cute. But then the Roy and Jamie stuff really fucking recovers. After exchanging apologies for being dicks to one another, they bike along the water, and Jamie shares a story of previous trips to Amsterdam with his parents. One time he went with his dad at 14, and his dad forced him to lose his virginity to a prostitute. And Roy says that must have been very traumatic. And Jamie's like, I don't even fucking remember it. Like, he says, she loved it. I don't even fucking remember it. Then he talks about going with his mom a separate time and doing all kinds of like wholesome things. And he mentions like something he ate, and he's like, I'll never forget that. And I think Jamie's had a great arc for this show. And it's cool to see the guy from season 1 saying that he doesn't even remember the bad stuff his dad made him do that you would think he'd like, and that he'll never forget the wholesome stuff his mom made him do that you wouldn't think he'd like. So like, I don't know. I thought that was a really good moment for Jamie and Roy, and they continue to be probably my favorite. They're my favorite dynamic of the whole show from day one, even when they were at each other's throats. I love the Roy and Jamie dynamic. I mean, Ted and Beard, probably number 1, but like it's like 1A and 1B. Moving on to Higgins and Will. Higgins spends a lot of time, again, lots of wasted time, I think, building up things that don't ultimately pay off here. Higgins spends a lot of time building up this idea of going to the red light district, as if we're all supposed to believe he's like about to get his dick sucked or something. And he ends up at a jazz lounge, and he gets up on stage to play bass. Will keeps looking over at a couple kissing, and we later find out when he's talking to his mom on the phone that they proposed a threesome to him. And I just don't see why we needed a single one of these scenes in the episode. It didn't do enough to make me feel any differently about Higgins or Will. Like, I don't feel like I learned anything about them, and the little it did do wasn't the least bit entertaining. Like, if you took every Higgins and Will scene out of the episode, it doesn't change anything surrounding the plot, and it may actually increase your enjoyment of the episode. But again, talking about things that don't pay off. Multiple times, Higgins like, I'm going to the red light district. And you think like, what the fuck is Higgins going to get into in the red light district? And even though I'm thinking like, yes, he's not going to do anything crazy, I still expect it to be something entertaining. So for it to just be like, hey, we're going to go to a jazz bar to pay homage, and then I'm going to get up on stage and play bass. I'm like, again, I don't mind that, but don't keep building up the idea that Higgins is going to get into something wild and then have it be something boring. Like, I don't know. And I might not have thought it was boring if you hadn't built up him doing something exciting. So, I'm turning red getting this fucking turned up. And then I think Colin and Trent is my last thing here. Yep. So, while the team is deliberating on what they're going to do, wasting my time because they're ultimately going to arrive at pillow fight, Colin lies and says he can't go because he has a little tummy ache. And me and Trent immediately both pop up like, he about to do something gay? And later, Colin very conspicuously sneaks out like a cartoon villain. Like, he puts a hood on his head. He's like sneaking around. It's like super obvious. Super fucking conspicuous. I'm using the word sneaks very loosely here. But Trent ends up following. And he follows Colin to a gay bar. And after Colin pretends he went in by mistake, Trent chases him down and admits he already knew Colin was gay. And then Trent later shares his own experiences coming out as a gay man and asks Colin how he handles keeping it secret as a celebrity. And this is something I thought the episode did really well, and that the show has done really well historically. So like, prior to this season, this show has been incredible, like I said earlier, with walking that fine line between being heartwarming and being corny. And like I said, this season has completely pissed on that line and jumped into corny with both feet. But not in this scene. Like, Colin explains that he has 2 lives. His work life, where he keeps a secret, and his dating life. And he says that Sarah helped him, Sarah's doc, the doctor from last season, helped him understand that he wants those 2 lives to be one life. And I also liked how he said he figured the team wouldn't care, which is what I said last week. Why would he keep that secret? But he answers my question, and he says it's just easier that way, which in and of itself is kind of sad. It's sad that he thinks it's easier to live two lives than to just tell his teammates. And then he says he just wants to be able to kiss his fella after winning a game, just like the other guys is to kiss their girls. And I think that's why this scene works. It's relatable, it's understandable, and that's why it's heartwarming without crossing into corny. Like, we can all relate to the idea of wanting to avoid feeling like an outcast. Even if you don't care, you can at least understand the idea of wanting to avoid the feeling of being an outcast. Wanting to live a normal life as your normal self, freely, but feeling like you can't because of how you're different. Like, nobody wants that. Even if you haven't experienced it, that's a feeling that we all can understand and accept as sad. The idea that you can't be who you want to be freely. And that makes Colin sympathetic. Now compare that to the totally implausible perfect guy that Rebecca meets, or the stupid fucking pillow fighting in the hotel lobby, and now you can see why I didn't like that stuff, but I did like what the Colin stuff. So one more thing of note about this scene before I wrap up. It was wild just to hear Trent tell Colin that those bells that were ringing in the background were the same bells that Anne Frank heard. I can't imagine how wild it would be to actually hear those bells. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. So that's all I got for this week. I will see you guys next week for episode 7. I don't want to say something as negative as like, I can't get much worse than this. It absolutely can, but I hope it doesn't. I hope we start moving up, because we're halfway through the final season now. There's only 6 more episodes left. If you had told me that this show wouldn't stick the landing coming into the season, I'd have told you to go fuck yourself. But like, it looks like it might not. It might not. And that's disappointing. So I will see you guys next week for episode 7. And until then, peace.